Good afternoon. Welcome to Education USA's graduate admissions presentation. My name is Arona Maskil, and I am the Director of Education USA Center, Israel. I will be your moderator for this session, and I will be discussing all the intricacies of graduate admissions to US graduate programs. So let's begin. First of all, I'd like you to understand that the admissions process is a holistic perspective on the student's capability, and it includes many different components. It includes the academic record, and it includes the standardized test scores and letters of recommendation, resume or CV, application essays, or statement of purpose, research, and work experience. And we will go through the slides, and I will explain each one of those separately. And at the end, I will answer your questions. I think the first thing that one needs to do when thinking about graduate study anywhere, specifically for this presentation in the US, you need to identify the reasons that you want to study in the US. You need to ask yourself, why would now in your academic or career trajectory, why would it be the right time for you to do it? What will be the advantages of applying for a graduate program? What do you want to get out of it? Where do you see yourself short-term, long-term, out of the program and 5 years down the line? And how do you think that the specific schools you will be applying to will actually give you the skill sets that you are intending to get from the program? Once you've done your self-reflection, you need to understand that the process to applying to U.S. schools, it might be lengthier than what you know from your own home country. So what we always tell our students is that you need to plan about 18 months before you begin your program. You need to research schools April through August, which jumped here. You should be researching schools, finding out about admission tests, and narrowing down your choices by about end of the summer, August, September. And somehow my text that is in here didn't come through, so I'll just have to read it off to you. Between September and December, or more accurately, between September and November, you should be taking your admission examinations. We'll talk about those, either TOEFL and GRE or TOEFL and GMAT. You should be writing to the departments that you want to apply to. You should begin your online application process. Secure your recommenders, and identify first your recommenders and then have a discussion with them whether they are willing, able, and capable of writing you a recommendation letter. And you should also begin to start writing your personal statements and or your statements of purpose. Most university deadlines, graduate programs, most graduate program deadlines fall between 1st of December to 1st of January. So in essence, your work will be done between December and January, whereas the academic year will only start in September, 9 months ahead of time. And that's why we recommend that you start your process about 18 months before your actual start date at the school. Most of the admission decisions and letters that you will be receiving will come somewhere between February and May, depending on the deadline of the program, depending on how many students apply to the program, and in what way does the admissions committee work as far as screening out students and deciding which students are accepted. You might receive an acceptance letter and only afterwards receive notification of funding, or you might receive an acceptance letter that already includes details of funding. Okay, yes. So finding the right program. Somehow, first of all, you have to choose an accredited university. All accreditation in the US is probably different than in your own home countries. There are more than 4,000 accredited universities, regionally accredited universities. Those are the kind of universities you want to be looking at. And there are probably over 1,700 universities that offer master's and PhD level study. So finding the right program includes elements such as researching opportunities via faculty. So who are the faculty members at the specific program you're interested in? What have they done? What articles have they written? What do they research? What are their research interests? And where are they? So if you read research article in year 2000 and it was written by somebody who you think would be that you'd be a really good fit to their department, find out we're in 2014 and I assume you'll be applying either 2015 or 2016. So find out if that person is still in that specific department. So it's very important to read. I assume that most of you are either in an undergraduate program or after an undergraduate program. So you should be familiar with who the people are in the faculties, because that will determine the fit between you and the faculty. Academic quality and reputation, length of the program, find out how long it will take for you to complete a master's or a PhD. Selectivity, competitiveness, and total intake, meaning how selective, how competitive is the program? How many students do they accept? Is it a PhD program that only accepts between 2 to 4 students, or is it a bigger program? And then we have subjective criteria such as location, geographic location, housing options, climate, campus setting. Is it not a campus setting, such as Columbia or NYU, who are located within the city, as opposed to what we all see in the movies, campus settings just like University of California, Berkeley, or University of North Carolina. These are different campus settings. You should also be researching funding options. And of course, you should be looking at how much is cost of attendance. Objective admission requirements. We are talking about BA, MA transcripts in English. So if you are applying to a master's program after a bachelor program, you should have your bachelor transcripts translated to English. If you are applying to a PhD program and already have a master's degree, then you should probably have your bachelor's and master's transcripts translated into English. Usually you would need 3 recommendation letters. They might be a combination of academic and professional. If you are applying to a master's program, you will probably include 1 professional recommendation letter together with 2 academic recommendation letters. And if you are applying to a PhD program, the most important recommendations are the academic ones. Personal statement and statement of purpose, we'll be discussing those. Some programs will require you to send in a writing sample, and they will tell you what the length of that is. It might be anywhere from 10 pages to 25 pages. Admission tests, we are talking about TOEFL and GRE. In some instances, when you're applying to PhD programs, it might include an additional examination called the GRE subject and GMAT. Okay. So, what are admissions looking for? They are looking for a complete picture of you. A complete picture of you includes your motivation, focus, and your goals, your academic ability, communication skills, reading, writing, speaking, potential for success. I'm trying to get this. Okay, here we go. Communication skills, reading, writing, and speaking. We talked about potential for success, meaning how successful will you be in the program and as an alumni, and personal qualities such as readiness for graduate study, self-discipline, work habits, teamwork, independent study, commitment, ideas, maturity, adaptability. The last bullet point is actually achieved through recommendation letters, and we'll talk about that when we get to the recommendation letter slide. But those are best manifested through your recommender. Okay, let's talk about master's degrees. When you consider applying for a master's degree, there are few different master's degree. There is the generic Master of Arts. There is MS Master of Science, which is usually in engineering. Agriculture could also be in finance, Master of Science in finance. Terminal masters are degrees for students who don't want to continue to a PhD degree, but they are in a PhD track. And then there is the professional master, MBA, Master of Business Administration, LLM, which is the Master of Graduate Law, MSW, Master of Social Work, MEd, Master of Education, and MFA, Master of Fine Arts. Most master's degrees last between 1 to 2 years, and there are thesis track programs and there are non-thesis track programs. You should find out if you're interested in doing only a master's degree in the US and then want to return to your home country and want to leave an option for the future of studying for a PhD degree. It might be advisable to find out if in your home country, the universities that you'll be applying for a PhD require you to take a thesis, to have a thesis in order to be accepted. And then it would be advisable, of course, to go for a thesis track program in a US university. The PhD program requires in the beginning 1 to 2 years of coursework. Everybody who enters a PhD program, regardless of their background and level of study, actually have to go through a very structured program which requires 1 or 2 years of coursework, after which you will be taking a qualifying or comprehensive examination, and after which you will actually be full-time writing your thesis. So the 1 and 2 year coursework, you will be defined as a PhD student, and after having taken the comprehensive examination, you will actually be defined as a PhD candidate. So it's kind of a change of status. For the MBA degree, there is a difference between an MA and an MBA degree. The MBA degree is a very professionally oriented degree. It's a very practice-oriented, hands-on degree. And therefore, the admission requirements for an MBA degree are a little bit different than for a regular MA degree. most MBA programs require an entering student to come with 2 to 5 years of postgraduate work experience. Postgraduate means that after you've completed your undergraduate degree, that you have actually entered the workforce and you have worked full-time for a minimum of 2 years to mostly a maximum of 5 years. The average is usually somewhere between 4 to 5 years. In the MBA, for the MBA degree, 2 to 3 recommendation letters are required, and most of them, the focus would be on professional recommendation letters, having written by your immediate supervisor who can attest to skills that you have within the professional field. 1 to 5 essays per university, per program. These are short, very focused essays. For example, please describe your short-term and long-term goals. That would be a typical essay. Another typical essay would be why MBA, why now, why us? And those are usually 250, 300 word essays. The entrance examinations that you will have to take include TOEFL and GMAT, and also either GMAT or GRE. Okay, GRE is a new addition in the last 2 years. MBA programs are allowing students to also test for the GRE instead of the GMAT. So there are 2 tests, not 3. It will always be the TOEFL, and you will be able to choose between the GMAT or the GRE. And let's go on to the next slide. I think that we jumped a little bit. Let's see here, back to the MBA. Here we go. Personal statement. We're going to talk now about the different intricacies of the application process. And the 2 most important parts are the personal statement, statement of purpose, and recommendations. So we're going to start with the personal statement, statement of purpose. As you can read, a good personal statement provides an assessment of your academic interest and research skills, and it will also determine how successful you will be as a graduate student and as a professional. And it will give you a chance to actually highlight your motivation, your character, your skills, your fit to the department, which is a very important paragraph in every personal statement or statement of purpose. I would say probably that the personal statement and/or the statement of purpose is one of the most important parts of the application process. And it is from this statement that the admissions committee will be able to read about your seriousness of your intentions and about your past experience and how well qualified are you to begin this graduate program, and what are your motivations, and how are you fit to the culture and to the research interests of the department. So this is something that our students invest a lot of time, effort in writing. This is not usually something that can be written in one weekend. It's a process. First of all, it's a self-reflection process, and afterwards, it's a writing process. So your first draft will obviously not be your last draft, and there are students who invest more than a month writing and rewriting personal statements and statements of purpose. So a good statement should answer the following questions. Why do you wish to pursue a graduate degree, and why now? And we discussed this in an earlier slide where this is part of your work, your initial research, your initial self-reflection to find out why would be the right time to do it now. What are your academic or research interests? They have to coincide with that of the department. Otherwise, you will not be accepted. So if you are interested in researching about elephants, for example. And the department's focus is on horses. So besides the two being animals, you don't really have any common research interest. And you might be a bright student with stellar records, but you will not be accepted to the program unless your research interests are of interest to somebody at the department. And that's why, as part of your personal statement, you will be writing an extensive paragraph. Why are you applying to the specific institutional program, where you will actually attest to how you are a good fit, and how are your research interests coincided with that of the department or of the specific faculty in the department. So some tips for a good essay. They are not looking for an elaboration of your resume or CV. It is not a list of your whole life's worth of accomplishments, even though I'm sure there are many. They want you to be very clear, very focused, very specific. Focus on your experiences, bring examples, write about examples, write about your conclusions and how it impacted you. Show how you intend to contribute to the department through common research interests, through your background and skills and your qualifications. And of course, relevance to your proposal and fit to the faculty, which I already talked about, which is a very, very important element in acceptance, as well as, of course, in the application process. And from here, we go to recommendation letters. As we discussed, unless we're talking about an MBA degree, most non-MBA faculties, departments are looking for 3 recommendation letters, and most of those will come from the academia. You need to find people or faculty members who know you and your work well, because a good letter needs to include extensive knowledge of your skills and your experiences and how your work compares with that of others, an assessment of your strengths and of your research experience. Specifically, if you are applying to a PhD degree, this is very important. Try to find recommenders who can attest to your research experience and your research skills, because that is the majority of what you will be doing in a PhD program, and the committee who is looking for students is looking to see how mature you are research-wise. So that is something to think about when you think about who your recommenders, who do you want to be, who do you want to have write your recommendations. You have to find people who you have either taken courses with, who know you well, and who can write about you, or other people in the academia who can fill at least a 1-page recommendation. A good recommendation is 1 full page. It can also be more. It can be a page and a half. I usually haven't seen more than 2 pages, but the generic one usually is 1 page. So from here, we are going to jump to costs and funding. This is always a very painful slide, but reality is reality. So tuition and fees vary between state schools and private schools. As you can see, state schools usually are a bit cheaper than private schools. The exception to what I just said would be specifically within 2 faculties, that of the graduate law, LLM, and that of the MBA programs. MBA programs in most state and private schools are very comparable, and they're quite high. Living expenses vary depending on the geographic location of where you will be located. And I think the next slide will show this more accurately. There are, of course, states that living expenses is more expensive, and there are states where it is much more affordable. If we take an example, everything in the left-hand column are very expensive states. So we have Massachusetts, Boston that everybody knows, New York City, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, California, Los Angeles, California, Miami, Florida, and Hawaii. There are more states, obviously, but couldn't fit into the slide, so we just gave you a sample of what an expensive state is as far as living expenses and personal expenses for a student. So if we compare New York City on the left, where it says approximately $2,000 monthly, which includes housing, meals, and personal expenses, and we go to the right-hand column, which is the affordable state column, you will see that Syracuse, New York, which is an area upstate of New York City, monthly expenses are approximately $1,455. Now that in and of itself might not be that big of a difference, but if you multiply that by 9 months, then you will have, which is the academic year, it will be a substantial sum of a difference, and might be also, of course, a consideration in how you choose schools and what schools would you be choosing. So graduate funding, we are now, that's the optimistic part of the previous slide. I'm going to talk about funding. Funding in the U.S., as I assume everywhere else as well, is quite competitive, usually awarded to students with good academic records. And here again, I'm going to refer to the word fit, which I have been using in this presentation, because the second bullet epitomizes what I mean. And what I mean is that you need to demonstrate the relevance of your proposal to the professors. The better fit that you have with the universities, with the departments, and your research interests are coincided with theirs, the better chance you have of receiving funding for your studies. What I do recommend is when you initially begin this process and you write down a list of possible universities, you should also look and see what they say about funding specifically to international students. And there are departments that everyone accepted is automatically funded. There are departments that say that partial funding is available to everybody, and there are departments that will say that very limited funding is available to international students, and then you might want to reevaluate if you are interested in applying to this specific department and university. So the types of funding varies by field. The STEM fields, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, these are usually the kinds of fields that draw the most funding. Students are expected to receive generous funding. Humanities and social sciences depends on the faculty, department, and university. And business, health, law, communications, and other professional fields, some students are funded, not everybody. On a master's level, definitely very limited funding. And MBA, for example, they have a loan program. Most of the bigger or well-known MBA programs have loan programs. So they might give you a loan against your acceptance. There is no co-signing needed, with the intention in mind that if you are accepted to a good program, then your chances of finding employment after the program are pretty good, which means that you will be able to return the loan. Sometimes on a master's level, funding is easier obtained once you're in the program, meaning that you might be accepted to a master's program, and the first year you will not be funded. And once you're in the program and the faculty knows you well and you've made a good impression and you're a good student, it might be easier to find funding for the second year. So there are various sources of what we call internal university-oriented funding and external, which is various foundations. So internal funding usually comes in three forms. It comes either through teaching assistantship positions, research assistantship positions, or fellowships. In most cases, if you are awarded a teaching or research assistantship position, you are usually exempted from tuition and receive a stipend for living. And if you are awarded a fellowship, then usually it is a full funded package where you don't necessarily need to be a teaching assistant or a research assistant. So those are the three types of internal university-oriented funding. The external funding, I'm referring to all the different and various foundations that are out there. Obviously, there wouldn't be enough slides or memory on this computer to write them all down. So I just giving you very few just to think about. Fulbright grants, if there are Fulbright grants in your country. AAUW is just an example of many scholarships out there for women. AAUW specifically stands for American Association of University Women, but there are also other organizations that give funding for international students who are women and want to study for graduate study in the US. And there are many field of study originated grants, and I would assume that your Education USA center in whichever country you are from should have a list and resources on the various foundations and funding that is available. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the graduate standardized tests that I mentioned earlier. GMAT, which is required for all the MBA programs. It has three components. It measures verbal, quantitative reasoning, and writing abilities. And it is an online registration procedure, and you can just copy this link and register online. GRE is required for all the other graduate programs that are not MBA programs. And GRE measures also verbal and quantitative reasoning and writing abilities. They are both the GRE and GMAT are very similar tests, with the exception that GMAT is more quantitatively oriented and GRE is more language oriented. So here you also have a link on how to register for the GRE test. TOEFL IBT is TOEFL internet-based testing. TOEFL measures English proficiency for academic settings. It's offered many, many times throughout the year if in your country you have internet-based testing, and you can also register online. And there are approximately 70% of U.S. universities that will allow you to take the IELTS. The IELTS is originally an United Kingdom-based equivalent to TOEFL, and usually the IELTS is the one that's accepted in most universities if you're applying to England. But in the last few years, many U.S. universities are also allowing students applying to their programs to take the IELTS. And IELTS, you can go online. I am not sure that, it's not a computer-based testing. It's more of a pen and paper test, but you can go online and receive all the information regarding the IELTS test. As I mentioned earlier, there are some programs, mostly only on the PhD level, not on the master's level, that will ask you to take an additional examination. It's in addition to the TOEFL. It's in addition to the GRE general test. And it's in these following fields that are marked in red: biochemistry, cell and molecular biology, biology, chemistry, computer science, English literature, mathematics, physics, and psychology. This is a paper and pencil version test only, and the test can be taken only during 3 days during the year. Usually it is October, November, and April. So you can also go online to the GRE site and find out the exact testing dates and information about the GRE subject test. So in order to wrap up my part and start answering your questions, this is a link that you can find out a lot of information about U.S. study. Visit your local advising center or follow us on our website. And I will now be I will be reading the questions and answering them verbally. Okay, so question here. Hello, I would like to know if there is a full financial aid package at any university in the USA. I think I kind of did cover that. Depends on the faculty, depends on the level of study. Your chances of receiving full aid on a PhD level are very good. On a master's level, depends again on the program, faculty, and on the field of study. Okay, I am now an undergraduate student, so are there any opportunities for me to join your college you work in? I don't work for a college, I work for an Education USA center. And in order to find out more information about opportunities for US study, I don't know what country you're from, but I am certain that you have an Education USA center in your country, city, or region, and that would be a good place to start. Looking for various study opportunities. So the next question is, how can I get admission into Texas Tech University for my master's with the help of a scholarship? Texas Tech is a university in Texas, obviously. And scholarships, first of all, I am not sure if you're applying for a master's or a PhD, but you should definitely check within the department that you're applying for what are their scholarship grant opportunities, and maybe check in-country sources if you have government scholarships or if you have Fulbright scholarships, and then find out how you can actually build a financial package for yourself. Okay, I think I answered this one already. Full scholarships offers for master's degree. It depends, again, on the field of study and on the faculty itself. The next question is, what is the most important factor for getting accepted into an engineering program? And I think that the person asking it has already answered it, because he wrote merit, TOEFL, GRE, work experience. I think that you are accurate. Everything counts. Your academic record counts. Your work experience does count, because a master's in engineering is a practice-oriented program in most cases. Your TOEFL will count. You will need to get the minimum score on a TOEFL, which for engineering might be lower than in the humanities. And of course, your GRE score, with the focus being more on your quantitative score as opposed to on your verbal score. Okay, let's see what else there is. Do you think that a Fulbright grant is enough for 1 full year abroad? Your Fulbright grant should cover your entire program of study, whether it's a year or whether it's 2 years, if it's a master's program. Fulbright doctoral programs, if there is such a scholarship in your country, usually covers the first 2 years. But if you have a Fulbright Foundation in your region, then you should definitely ask them, as each Fulbright program in each different country is built differently, okay, and has different terms and different kinds of grants. Should I apply for admission first after being admitted? Then I should ask about assistantship. This is for a master's. So what happens is that you need to apply, and as part of your online application process, there will most likely be a form that is titled Financial Aid Request or Scholarship Request Form, and it will have a number of questions that you will need to answer about which kinds of scholarships do you think that you're best suited for. And sometimes they will ask you more specific questions. You will only know at time of acceptance whether you were granted a scholarship for your program of study. You won't know in advance, okay? I was wondering what to do if my transcripts are not in the GPA standard. Okay, so your transcripts is only one part of your entire holistic application process. It depends on the field of study and the faculty. So if we are talking about an MBA degree, your GPA is important, but it is not the most important part of your application. Your work experience, your essays, your recommendations carry a lot of weight getting into an MBA program. If you are in the humanities or in the sciences, or if you are thinking about clinical psychology, then your GPA scores will matter. But on every website of every department, you will see, and this is true for everybody, there is a profile of entering students. And this is statistical information based on entering students for the year previous or for the last 2 years previous. And what it will give you an idea of what kinds of students are admitted to the program. What is their GPA? What is their average GRE score? What is their average work experience, if that is relevant? And it'll give you a very good idea if you are a competitive applicant to that specific program. Okay, this is a long one, bear with me. Okay, wrapping up BA in communications, graduating in June, wanting to study in the US, feasible to apply for next year? No. Next year, if we are talking about, we are now in September, so if we are talking about 215, yes, it's feasible as far as deadlines. As I said, deadlines are December or January. If it's feasible as far as the workload that you will have to do, researching schools, writing to the departments, narrowing down your list of schools, studying for the GRE and the TOEFL, securing recommendations, writing personal statements, that might be pretty tight. As I said previously, students start this process at least a year in advance and preferably 18 months in advance. So if you try to do all of this within the next 3 months, you might find yourself sending in applications that are not the strongest application that you are capable of sending in. So that's something that you should be thinking about, whether it would be worthwhile to maybe postpone for the academic year 2016. Who should I direct my inquiries about securing an assistantship? That's part of the funding process, the funding part of the application process. And you can ask that question in an introductory email to a faculty member or to the department. And you need to research also the department's website to see what they say about funding opportunities. Okay, looking for a master's degree in linguistics. There are a lot of programs in linguistics. I would refer you to the local Education USA Center. They have reference materials that contain all the different fields of study and where you can study them, either through Peterson's publications or other publications that list all the different fields of study, whether it's on a master's level or a PhD level. Usually it's alphabetized from A to Z, and you will find a complete list of linguistic studies in the US. Okay, I'm from Iraq. What is your role in the issuance of visa? I'm not a consular officer, so I have a difficult time answering that. I would assume that you are eligible for a student visa just like everybody else. But again, that is a specific consular question that I'm not in a position to answer. Does having a Fulbright MS grant give a better chance of acceptance? If you are referring to trying to get accepted to a PhD program, I'm sure it will. To try to get accepted to another master's program depends again on the field of study. I wouldn't be able to answer you without better understanding your academic background. Okay, an architect, planning to complete my master's studies in the US, taken the IELTS, and received a 6.5 as an overall score, and not less than 6 in any major. I'll be glad if you can recommend universities in the US which are famous for architecture and provide scholarships. Okay. First of all, I cannot recommend online universities. There are a lot of very, very good universities. Some of them you might know by name, and some of them you might not know by name, not because they are not good, because you are an international student who is physically outside of the US, so you might be less familiar with many of the programs that are more familiar to students who are in the US. And I don't think this is the platform for recommending schools, as there are many, and I don't have my reference materials anyway in front of me. As far as scholarships, and specifically to Syrian students, I would think that you also have in-country sources for scholarships. There might be some specifically designated scholarships for international students within the different programs. If it's on a master's level, Masters of Architecture, it is sometimes more difficult to secure full funding, but definitely maybe partial funding. Okay. Finance in masters, what options do I have? Again, any specific scholarships for Syrians? I can't answer specifically for Syrians as I'm not familiar to what is out there, but within the Education USA network, I'm sure that you can discuss funding opportunities with an advisor who is from Syria and who can help answer your questions about advising. As far as options, there are many, many, many finance programs in the US, not necessarily out from an MBA program, but Master of Finance, as I earlier mentioned. And again, through Peterson's guides or Peterson's online, which is petersons.org, you will be able to narrow down your choices and find a list of schools within your specific field of study. Is it mandatory for a Ghanaian student to write a GRE and admit it into every program in the US? Not sure what your question means, but if you are interested in a master's program, you will most likely have to take the GRE general test. What is the standardized GPA account criteria that is accepted in all US universities? There is no standardized GPA account criteria. You will find that most programs write a minimum GPA of 3.0, which might be true for many faculties, but for many competitive fields of study or programs, 3.0 will not be enough. And they would probably look for a GPA that is at least 3.4, 3.5 and up. Graduate of English would like to apply for assistantship for a master's in English. How? I think I've covered that through the different fields of study in my previous answers. How important is the personal statement as regards to admission decision? It is very, very important. If you put yourself in the chair of an admissions committee and consider reading these admission essays, you read several dozen candidates who have already been screened as possible admits. So they all have high GPAs and good test scores, but almost as many as half are rejected. So a personal statement of purpose can really help you if it's focused, concise, and well written. It can help you distinguish yourself from the other applications and help you in the admission process. But again, as part of a holistic process, it is one of the many components, though an important one. So I should apply to the school I wish, and then if accepted, should contact Fulbright Commission for funding. I think that you should do it simultaneously because Fulbright, every country has their own, every Fulbright Commission in a specific country has their own deadlines and their own kind of program criteria. And I think it would be wise to understand the program criteria so that you wouldn't miss out on that specific year. For example, Fulbright in Israel, in my office, our application deadline is March 30th for the academic year 2016. So it is it's over a year in advance. So, but it might not be the same in your country, so that's something that should be worth checking out. Looking for a master's degree, free master's degree online, not familiar with free programs. There are online master's programs. You might go into websites for distance learning and find master's programs that are online. Okay. Academic background is in telecommunications engineering, 4 years of experience. Okay. I have the Fulbright grant. Do you think I come as a good candidate for an engineering? I think you're definitely a very good candidate for an engineering program. Okay, hold a master's degree in traditional Islamic arts, and I want to ask about studying in the USA. Need to know about scholarships and the process. I think I kind of covered that. You can refer to my slides. Is there an Education USA Center in Paris? Yes, there is. Okay, I have studied this summer in the US. I'm studying now abroad in Paris and planning to intern next year for 3 months in the US. Do I still have to take the TOEFL test? Yes, you will most likely need to take the TOEFL test, as the only students who are exempt from the TOEFL test are those students who have studied their last 4 years, their last degree in the English language. So if you have only taken a summer program, and I'm sure your English is much improved, you will still need to take the TOEFL test. Okay, I think I covered most of the questions. I very much thank you all for being part of this graduate admission session. I hope that you learned something, and I hope that I was able to answer most of your questions and help you focus further on this graduate study opportunity. And I strongly urge you to visit your local Education USA Center, because they are the professionals in the field and they are able to help you with your whole application process. So thank you very much. I wish you a great day, and you've been a great audience. Thank you.